we had at our house, we had a little manual machine as well that us kids could, we had a quota.
Did you?
We had to run so many parts. And so, it just sounds crazy talking about it, but makes me realize my kids are living a pretty cush life these days.
Hey kids, it's time to run on a press break.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it was a little bit of risk taking back then. And
no dinner. You haven't met your quota.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs. Tee off for the trades and support the next generation of manufacturing. Join us on Monday, May 22nd at Firethorn Country Club in Charlotte, North Carolina for NBT's Golf for Manufacturing South. All proceeds will go towards supporting summer manufacturing camps and scholarships. Reserve your spot today by visiting nutsandboltsfoundation.org.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis with the Fabricator Magazine, joined by my colleague
Rich Burnett
or Lincoln Bruner.
Yes.
Which one's a pseudonym? I'll let you decide. Lincoln helps us out with the Tube and Pipe Journal and also contributes to the Fabricator on occasion.
Yes.
Also joined by Gareth Slager, our digital editor, and Brandon Geyer, the man on the computer. Pretty sure he's not playing Tetris. No, he's helping us out.
You never know.
All the cameras on that monitor.
So today's conversation is with Lisa Wertzbaugher.
Yes.
Of Wertzbaugher Services out of West Liberty, Iowa. And Lisa is a contributor to the Tube and Pipe Journal. She writes a column we call Executive Perspectives. Executive Perspectives, not perspective. Perspectives.
Yes.
Thank you. And she has a good feel for operations, sales, marketing within a company, having helped her parents sell their tube fabricating shop about 3 or 4 years ago. And she's kind of turned that into not only her own fabricating business with her husband, but also a business consultancy she does at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that'll be a good one. Being in Iowa had me thinking about, as we taped this, the Iowa and Louisiana State University. You may have heard of it. Famous people go there.
No.
The Women's National Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a little bit of controversy coming out of there. But I think bigger point is how many people actually watch that game compared to regular ESPN programming.
Yeah.
Well, the entire women's tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as much as I love LSU and the players on that team who even display somewhat questionable sportsmanship, people were tuning in for Caitlin Clark. I don't think that was any lie there.
No.
Yeah, give her a half second, she'll fill it up from 40 out. But it probably could have been a better game given how it was called.
4.5 million
Yeah,
viewers.
that's something else.
I mean, that's like women's World Cup type numbers. I mean, that's not really, but that you look at I love the popularity. I have 3 daughters. I love the popularity of women's sports, not only because they deserve it, but because you see a kind of athleticism that just has traditionally, unfortunately, gotten passed by. And you look at the amount of work that goes into winning a championship. You've got, you're missing something if you're not tuning in.
So that game, particularly Caitlin Clark's game, opens up that floor. Mm-hmm. And she's popping from logo out.
Yeah. Yep.
She can put the ball on the floor and give it off to people. If she's not scoring, she can find the people that could score. Mm-hmm. They have decent outside shooting on that team. It's kind of like that whole debate in terms of 3-pointer, the focus, that type of offense, as opposed to more traditional, send it down low to the post.
Yeah,
it was kind of fun to see the difference.
Yeah, well,
how the Steph Curry game kind of changed everything.
So I have these conversations with friends who coach on the high school level, and they're seeing teams run that type of offense, and even though these kids are not very good shooters,
it's about the volume.
Yes,
not about.
I guess
it turns into an average game, right? It turns into a numbers game.
Yeah, but when it works, it's pretty. I'm not so sure.
But she was a triple-double threat throughout the entire tournament.
Yes. Yeah. No. There's no doubt there. But Yeah, so I know that a lot of people got worked up because of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't see me. To me, it's like, it is what it is.
If you saw
Yeah,
men's,
you get mad and, that's good. Go to Twitter and
There-
be mad.
There are a lot of people
Fine,
defending,
whatever.
that taunting is actually better for the game.
well,
I don't know.
It doesn't.
Mutual taunting is good.
It doesn't even get a second look at the NBA level, so why should it at that level? I don't know.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Because that game, I mean, the tournament averaged 4.5 million, but that game averaged a peak of like almost 13 million viewers.
yeah.
Wow.
No, but I think literally, it was, once
realize
again,
that.
Caitlin Clark, they want to see something special.
There's a lot of good things coming out of Iowa nowadays, right?
Yes, like,
Well, the Field of Dreams game that they're playing.
yes.
all right,
Yeah.
yep, and
Cedar
John
Rapids.
Deere tractors,
And a lot of corn,
corn,
Yeah.
yep.
a lot of ethanol.
John Deere tractors came out of Illinois.
Yes.
It's true.
So they do some.
They're in
something
Moline.
over in Iowa,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right, I just
It's
Quad
the Quad
Cities,
Cities
yeah.
area. So
Amana blue cheese.
Is that Iowa?
I think that's Iowa,
All
unless
right.
they moved that too.
call Lisa.
Des Moines is a cool city.
I've never been to Des Moines.
It's if you've ever been to Madison, it's very similar.
Clinton, Iowa is a nice town.
Okay.
It really
Home of the
is.
Lumber Kings.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Single A baseball.
Sure.
There you
Unless
go.
do they still have the team, or did they move that one too?
I'm not sure.
Speaking of single A baseball, did you ever watch that Netflix special on the was it the Bastards of Baseball with
From
Portland.
Portland? Yeah,
Yeah. fantastic.
Portland Mavericks.
The Portland Mavericks,
The team that was owned by Kurt Russell's dad, who was an actor.
Yes, he played the sheriff on Bonanza for 13
Correct.
seasons.
And the person that made the film is a Hollywood actor who's a bat boy on that team.
Yes.
It's really it's worth a watch. It's
it's-
very interesting.
The Clinton Lumber Kings are still around. They're a collegiate
a great
wooden bat
logo.
league. Yeah.
The Lumber Kings is an interesting name for an Iowa team too. I wonder if
Yeah. They
So what else is
also,
good out of Iowa?
What's that?
What else is good out of Iowa?
Man,
quality of life. I don't know.
offensive linemen and tight ends.
Sure.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I think
Good wrestling program
Always
yes, correct.
University
He was
of
a
Iowa.
long time guy.
for Iowa wrestling.
Yeah,
I'm not
Or
sure.
Dan-
Won all those.
uh,
Oh, geez, I can't believe I can't remember that. He won all the Olympic gold medals.
Dan.
Gable.
Yes.
That
There you
it?
go. All right. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, it's a lot of wrestlers. That's good. What else?
What?
They used to make a lot of appliances there. I don't know. Amana was there. Maytag was made in Iowa, I think.
Okay.
What else we got?
Have you ever seen the movie
already?
Cedar
Interstate
Rapids?
80?
What's that?
The movie Cedar Rapids.
I know it. I haven't seen
It's John C. Reilly's in it.
it yet. Oh,
I'll say no more.
Who's the guy from The Office and from The Hangover?
blanking.
Ed Helms.
Ed
Helms.
Helms.
Look at you.
Yes. Yeah.
Go Brandon.
But
That's it.
very funny movie. Check it out.
There you go. So one of our favorite things from Iowa is Lisa Wertzbaugher.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Lisa's been a fantastic contributor for a fair bit of time now for TPJ, and never fails to come up with a fresh angle about small business. I love her perspective on ownership. I really like her perspective on how to deal with people.
Yeah.
She's got a really good way about approaching small business problems from the people angle, because that's what it's all about. I mean, it's at the relationship level. She's very adept, and she's been a real active member of the TPA Council. She's been a really active member of our leadership with the organization
Yep.
itself.
FMA, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Board
think she
member.
knows who Dan Gable is?
Oh yeah.
Probably.
She lives
I
in
imagine
Iowa.
like 4 out of 5 Iowans would know.
He's kind of an Iowa legend.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
especially-
we should ask that question. Write that down for the next time.
Who is Dan Gable?
No, do you know who Dan Gable is?
Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by FabTech. Registration is now open for FabTech 2023. Join us September 11th through the 14th at McCormick Place in Chicago for North America's largest metal forming, fabricating, welding, and finishing trade show. Meet with over 1,300 world-class suppliers, discover innovative solutions, and find the tools you need to improve productivity and increase profits. Visit fabtechexpo.com to register today. And now back to the episode.
Welcome to today's episode of the Fabricator Podcast. I am joined by Lincoln Bruner, my colleague, who contributes to both the Fabricator and the Tube and Pipe Journal. Today's guest is Lisa Wertz. You corrected me on the original saying. I tried to practice and it didn't come. Lisa Wertzbaugher.
Yes, correct.
Lisa grew up in a fabricating family.
Yep.
She also is now part of a fabricating family with her own family. In between, she raises 3 kids.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure your husband helps too.
He is this week.
And she's also involved with some consulting on the side.
Yep.
We hope to cover a lot of this. She has really good perspective on the industry, and she's also need to point out she's a columnist for the Tube and Pipe Journal. So we know her very well.
Wow.
She's a member of the FMA board, so a longtime contributor to not only the industry but also to the association. So we appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So Lincoln, you work closely with Lisa.
Yeah, and Lisa, one of the things that I'm just terribly interested in is what it was like to grow up in the business from an early age. You know, we were talking before about, you know, when your parents bought the business, it was a rough go for a while. You're in junior high, you're old enough to understand the stresses. What was that like growing up like that?
I mean, it was tough because, you know, my dad just had a good paying job at a sheet metal company, large sheet metal company, and then was having trouble sourcing fabricated tube for his sheet metal assemblies, and felt like there was an opportunity there in the market. And I think had always wanted to be a business owner. And so he bought a broken down, you know, pretty much bankrupt stamping company and ran that. And over time with plans to convert it to a tube fab business. And it was hard. It was really hard. I mean, it's like a lot of the small businesses that exist today. You know, a lot of us have the same story to tell. You know, you have little kids, you leverage everything that you've got, you are just paying bills month to month, no cash flow, everything's tight. You know, every month you're thinking, are we still alive? You know, are we still alive? Or are we shutting the doors? And so it was tough. It was really hard on my parents. It was really stressful. I was old enough to comprehend or to really feel the stress. And, you know, I worried about it too, but I wasn't old enough really to understand how we got out of it or see a light at the end of the tunnel. But I worked a lot in the business, and we were the only employees for the first few years. And eventually they landed a couple small jobs, and then you land a couple bigger jobs, and maybe you get your foot in the door with an OEM. And but I would say the first 5 years were really tough. Tough. Slow climb.
Yeah, and you said they started the business out of their garage.
Yeah, so they bought a little shop that was about the size of a garage, and then at our house we had a little manual machine as well that us kids could. You know, we had a quota.
Did you?
We had to run so many parts. And so, I mean, it just sounds crazy talking about it, you know, but makes me realize my kids are living a pretty cush life these days.
Hey, kids, it's time to run on a press break.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there was a little bit of risk taking back then. And
no dinner. You haven't met your quota.
But it was.
I don't see any parts on the floor.
It's hard at the time. It was rough, and but looking back, you know, it's fine. We made it, and they ran a very successful company for 27 years, and now they're retired.
Did the transition from stamping to tube kind of exacerbate those 5 years? I mean, that's not an easy thing. Or,
you know, I was pretty young at the time, but I do remember it was a very big deal when they bought their first tube bender.
Okay. Yeah.
And my parents still talk about that, buying their first Pines bender.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal.
Did the kids have to learn how to run it then?
Yeah, we didn't really get involved in that.
Yeah, that one's not going to fit in a garage.
No, we were like janitors sweeping floors. I mean, there were machines that we could run, but you know, we weren't skilled by any means, and so we were filler.
You weren't
easy, dirty work, right?
You weren't getting sent to trade school.
No. And so, you know, when I was in college is when I think the business really started to do well. I mean, it's when they kind of got over the hurdle, the big hurdle. And so.
Did that influence what you wanted to do or what you wanted to study in college?
Yes, because when you are 14 years old, a 14-year-old young lady, and most days when you're not in school, you're up early in a beat up pickup truck heading to a shop, you're thinking, there's nobody else I know my age who's doing this.
Right.
They all work at Claire's Boutique at the mall or at a summer
Dairy
camp.
Queen.
Yeah.
We heard this from a guest only
Or not
a few
at
weeks
all,
ago.
Or not at all, right?
And I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this for the rest of my life. Like when I'm out, I'm out. And I also didn't like being in a small business. So when I went to college, I wasn't really sure, exactly what I was going to do. But when I got out of college, I knew for sure that I didn't want to work in manufacturing. And I wanted to work for a very large, publicly traded company, a huge company where I could just get in on the ground floor and work my butt off and climb the ladder and work for big companies. That's all I knew.
So instead of becoming an iron worker, you became an irony worker.
Yeah,
now look
right.
where-
Yes,
now
yes.
look where you are.
Yes, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I initially crossed paths with you. You were presenting at a, I don't know if it was FMA conference or FMA annual meeting.
Probably.
Yeah, but it was related to your involvement. You were pulled back into the family business. So can you kind of give us what happened in between graduating from college and then kind of working your way back?
Sure.
Back home.
So I did go to work for a large company, and I was in a management training program, move through the business and one day you'll run a part of it.
Yep.
And they forced me to go into sales. And I didn't want to go into sales because I said, I grew up in a plant and I don't like sales. I don't like salespeople. It's aggressive. It's pushy. It's not my style. But they said, well, you have to, because if you're going to run a business, you have to know this piece of it. So you have to do a year in sales. So I went into sales and I just basically had a very pragmatic approach where I just said, okay, here's the activity that I need to do because I don't want to do this. But if I do this activity and I do this much of it, I'll probably close enough to hit my quota,
So you're very pragmatic about it.
Yes, I was. I was like, I don't want to have these conversations. I don't want to go knock on doors. It was very entry level selling, like cold calling businesses, trying to get appointments, no account management. It was just like you sell an account and you move on to the next one. No relationship building. So it was tough. But I just had these numbers figured out. Like if I would make, 50 cold calls a week, I could set up 25 appointments and 2 people would buy from me. I just kept telling myself, just do the activity.
Play the numbers game.
Yeah.
You'll get through it.
And by the end of the first year, I was recruited to go to work in the medical device industry as a salesperson. And at that point, I was successful. I was out selling everybody on my team. And it was just about activity. Yeah. And, I'm a consultant now.
Right.
Because
so
now I'm 25 years a salesperson.
Yeah, but this stuff's going to influence your future self.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went into medical device as a salesperson, and I stayed in that industry for about 10 years, and I did pretty much everything, sales and marketing and product development, and did a little bit of international work. And I had 3 little kids over this time period, and my parents it was kind of like a perfect storm. So I guess as I was working in medical device, I also started doing a little bit of consulting, just like somebody reached out and said, would you do some? So then my parents contacted me and actually became a client of mine.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
What was that dynamic like?
It was fine.
Yeah? Telling your parents what to do?
No, that's never how it's gone.
I was about to say recommendations.
No, right. Recommendations. No.
Suggestions.
But they wanted to grow their business. So they had grown and their business was doing really well, but they had kind of plateaued. And I just remember my dad saying, each year it's like, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know where, they had a good customer base, but I can't tell you how many times I talk to small business owners who say those exact words. Like, it's like crystal ball theory. Like, we don't know what's going to happen in the next year. And he was talking to me and I said, that's crazy. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, you don't have projections. You don't know where your growth's coming from. You don't, like, you should know all of those things. And he's like, well, but if you haven't been trained and grown up in a sales driven industry, or then you don't know those things. And he's an engineer. So he's been working in his shop and runs this amazing business, but he's like, I don't know how to grow it. So they hired me as a consultant. I worked for him for a year. And then at the end of the year, I went to work for him full time. I had little kids. I was wanting to get off the road, and I liked it. I was like, wow, manufacturing is different than it was when I was growing up. It was
filling the quota for your dinner.
Oh, I mean, it was just totally mind-boggling. I hadn't even been on their shop floor in years.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
no,
So
not
it changed
years.
a little bit.
Oh, it was like, it's clean. It's bright. I mean, all the equipment is quiet.
Yeah.
It's not you're pushing buttons and programming more than, I mean, I remember doing setups, and it was just extremely you're literally taking a machine apart and putting it back together to set up for a new part. And that's not how it was. And it was just it was so different.
At this time, how many like tube benders did they have? Like,
They probably had 12 or 13.
wow.
And
And is this all in the Iowa City area that they were doing
this is all in the Quad Cities.
Quad Cities, okay, yeah.
So
For those who don't know, the Quad Cities of Illinois and Iowa,
Yep.
can we name them?
Bettendorf, Davenport, Moline, and Rock Island.
There you go.
So I was like, this is interesting. And even like, we were floor sweepers, we pushed brooms, but now it was this thing that you rode around on. I'm like, everything here is just so much more fun than when we were growing up.
Funny what
But
prosperity does.
but the whole industry had changed. It wasn't just their business. It was like manufacturing, 20 years later, 15, 20 years later,
Yeah.
was really different. And
CNC machinery, and you've got
Yes,
a lot,
yes,
lot more
yes.
capital intensive work.
yes. And so, and there was just so much opportunity, so much opportunity. And also at this point, I was so tired of working for large publicly traded companies.
So your mindset had changed a bit.
Yes, totally.
So what was the grind there that was really kind of getting to you?
It's like turning a cruise ship to get anything done.
Yeah.
I was like, I grew up in a small family business with a fight, you're fighting to survive. So when you have that type of experience, your work ethic and your approach to work is different than a lot of people that you work with. What I realized in a big company didn't matter. A lot of times it didn't matter, and you can perform and deliver results that blow everybody out of the water. But if stock price is bad, you're getting cut, stock price is down, and it was just so hard to get things done. We couldn't make decisions quickly, a lot of bureaucracy. And I was like, I don't like this anymore. I don't like this. And when I started doing some consulting and I could plug into a small business, it was like, whoa, we're going to move the dial from like 0 to 60 real fast.
Yeah, policies tend to change just a little bit more quickly.
And it's just a small business. And so you plug this resource in, and it's a game changer. And I was like, oh, this is good, because I could see potential. And so
That small business mindset was really what you probably resonated with more.
yes.
Having grown up in that, and
And why I didn't like it when I first got out of college is because I didn't like the lack of policy, procedure, HR. I was looking for more of that. In a small business, it's kind of up to however the owners want to run it.
Right.
Oh, right.
And so I was like, I don't like that. I want something where there's standards and there's procedures and there's policies and consistency and
Careful what you wish for.
So did it kind of make you regret trying to get back to what you were trying to get away from before?
No.
Wanting to go into corporate world?
No,
getting away
I
from
think
small business?
it was like the timing was perfect, because when I first started working in the corporate world, I remember my first boss, my first mentor, who still is mentor to me today, greatest guy I've ever worked for. And he pulled me into the office and he was like, you have to tone it down a little bit. And he said, you're going to pay your bills and there's food on the table when you get home tonight. Like, this job is here for you. It's stable, but like, nobody likes working with you. Like, they're not going to, you're a hard person to report to, because
Wow.
it was just this level of intensity from coming out of that environment. And so thank God I met him right away, because he really helped coach me and balance it and manage it and find a way to still have that kind of drive and approach without like being isolated, because I'm a terrible coworker. And so, but growing up in that environment really impacted my corporate career because I just worked hard, I mean, I worked hard. Things didn't bother me. A lot of things didn't faze me. A tough boss was like, this is not a tough boss if you ever worked for your parents, know?
Right.
And my dad was he was a very
Obviously
performance
comes
driven.
from somewhere.
Yeah. And he's super smart and
He's exacting. He's an engineer.
Yeah. So like things didn't bother me. Nothing seemed, a lot of things that might seem super hard or tough for someone, I was like, no, I mean, when you grow up in an entrepreneurial environment, it's hard. And so that, I feel like my career path grew quickly because of that. And then when I went back to the family business, I was valuable for them because of everything I'd learned working in the corporate world.
Right.
So it was.
What year did you go back?
I went back to work for my parents in 2014.
Okay.
I wanted to get to something that we've talked with other guests about, and that's the whole value of mentorship.
Yes.
When you find a mentor
Yes.
who's willing to take you under their wing and teach you what they know, but kind of show you, here's how I've found success and how I think you can find success. I don't want to divert too much because I do want to talk about your current business with your husband, but I kind of wanted to touch on that whole value of mentorship angle with you. And maybe you could share with people a little bit about what you learned from that wonderful boss you had, but like the value of that you see in your life with that mentorship relationship.
I mean, somebody has to tell you the things that you don't want to hear, and some people aren't open to it because you have to be willing to accept critical feedback. But if you don't, you're stuck. And so you have to be open to it so that the faster you figure out your flaws and work on them, faster you move ahead.
Right.
That was not a fun conversation, by the way, because I thought I was great. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm a manager. I'm super good at it, and he's like, no, actually, like, you're not. Like, people don't like working for you because you're too much.
Our early comments on this podcast did that for us.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of probably real honest feedback.
Oh, it's going to be a lot better than our early stuff. So I think
let me tell you about
doing
Lisa.
well.
But I'm a huge advocate. I do it still in my consulting career. I do mentoring and coaching, and it's because I've been through it and I see the value of it. And so, yeah, it's important. It's easy, it's just an easy resource that you can provide for the people who work for you.
Well, if they'll listen.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
But in a way, when you went to work for your parents, you're almost kind of like a consultant coming in.
I was.
'Cause,
Yes.
I mean, everything you mentioned, you actually was the basis for, I don't want to call it modernizing it, but introducing processes to the front office, and maybe that impacted the shop floor as well.
Right.
What were some of those early things you worked on?
Well, main thing was sales. It was like, we need to grow this thing. And I just felt like the business was a best kept secret, which honestly, we have a lot of manufacturers like that in this
without a doubt.
association, where I'm just like, this business should be 10 times bigger than it is.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned opportunity.
Yes.
These are the days.
Yes. It's like you have such a good product. Yeah. You have good quality. And so that was the main thing. The first thing was, let's just write a business and marketing plan and then start executing it. And so, but we did that. But then along the way, I did a stint as HR manager. I did a stint and I said, listen, I don't even have HR experience. And I feel like this is an actual liability for the company. And they were like, well, yeah, but you worked for a big company and you have, you've been out there. Tell us what they were doing.
So you're the least liable person.
Right. You're basically the best of the worst. And so I did that job
with a name tag that says that, the best of the worst.
For a short stint, and then we ended up hiring someone. But So yeah, you got pulled into some of those things, benefits analysis and employee programs, and not because that's my expertise, but just because I'd worked, they've been working there their whole life, and I've been out working other places, and so I just had experiences that I could share. But most of my focus was on sales and revenue. And
So sales, HR. What were some things? Maybe another thing that in your parents' business that was lacking, or that you really learned from heading into running your own?
Oh, geez, so much, so much. I mean, so we were growing the company fast, real fast. We grew it by 50% in 4 years. And so that puts a lot of stress on the operational side of the business. And
The employees and
everybody, the equipment, the capital, plant property equipment, and the staff and processes and everything. And so it's funny because this happens a lot where small businesses who are performing very well and just chug it along and say, all we need is sales. And I have to say, okay, but this is going to come in and you're going to feel like you're drinking through a fire hose, and it's going to create problems. You may not be profitable. You have to do lots of reinvestment. You might have quality issues. I mean, there's a lot of pain when you grow, especially that quickly. And so, but they had to make significant capital investments, that was the first time they looked at buying like a piece of equipment that cost over $1 million and stuff like that, lots of capital equipment purchases and adding headcount. Headcount grew from 40 to 80.
Talk about growing pains.
Yeah. Square footage grew from like 60 to 115. So, but I went through that whole process. And so now owning a small business with my husband that is very, very small, like we're not even as big as one department that they used to have. But I've been through that.
Yeah. So you're prepared for it.
I mean, kind of. We still have to. We talk with my dad all the time about stuff, and my husband and him that's not my background. It's not my area of expertise. I went through it, so I know what's coming, but he's been a great resource for us now. He's actually a consultant for us now, kind of, Funny how this all keeps working, but my husband never goes and looks at a piece of equipment. Yeah. Jason is his name. He never looks at a piece of equipment without having my dad involved.
That's
like,
fantastic.
why would you? You know, I mean,
Right.
he's lived it. He's made the mistakes. He knows it. He's an expert. But we're prepared for how this goes, because, and I kind of lived through the process of, do you buy the equipment first? Do you get the head count? Do you taking a big risk? Like we bought equipment that I was out selling jobs that we didn't have equipment for. We were also buying equipment that we had no work for, but we thought there was a play to solve a problem in a market.
Right.
So, we were doing risky things, which is exactly what you're doing when you're starting your own business out of a garage, which is what my husband and I did.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about your business now, what it's called and what you're specialized in.
That's funny. I wish we were specialized, but when you're a small business, you do so many things.
Yeah. You're a general practitioner.
Yeah, what we're doing 5 years from now will probably be different from what we're doing today. But so my husband is a skilled welder. He grew up in the ag industry, working on farms, and learned how to weld and do a lot of like implement repair, commercial trailer repair, that type of work, just totally on the job. And so he started a welding shop in our own little shop garage on our property, same as kind of what my parents did, and just started doing welding work and welding repairs. And farmers would bring him work, cut some commercial trailer repair work and stuff.
Repair some cows.
Yep. And then over time, his business started to grow, and at that time I was still working in medical device and then helping my parents.
Okay.
And so he was just kind of running the business, and he had gotten an employee. But when I worked for my parents for about 4 years, and then their retirement strategy was to sell the business, which was great. We said, that's great. It's fine. Let's do it. And we went through that process, and it worked out. And then I said, okay, what's next for me? You know, I stayed on for a year with the new owners, but at the end of that, like, what happens next? And my husband and I talked, and I said, why wouldn't I work for us? You know, why we can do this, and I think we can. I know we can do it, and I can help you. And you are very skilled, and we have complementary skill sets.
Okay.
And so I went to work. I still do consulting, but I went to work for him, and then we started just doing a lot more, going out and getting. It went more from like a B2C type business to a B2B type business. Getting into more production type work, more fabrication, still doing a lot of commercial trailer repair.
Sure.
At that time, he had a couple trucks. So he started doing some trucking. We still have that. So we still have a lot of things going on, and we're still doing things today that we for sure won't be doing 5 years from now. But when you're a small business, you do what you have to pay the bills.
The name says it, right? Services.
And you're just doing whatever comes in the door so you can pay bills and make payroll. And but we have a commercial building now. You know, we're buying equipment, we're adding headcount, and probably the biggest value that I have for him is just the process of all the financial analysis.
Right.
You know, setting financial goals, monitoring metrics, where are we at, what's our TCAL, and then helping to figure out, all right, this is what we're dropping now, and here's what we're pursuing. And so that's the part of the business that I lead, and he leads the operational side.
Yeah.
He's still enjoying the work, even though your kind of change is afoot?
Yeah. I mean, we love it.
Okay.
We love it. It's super fun. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's stressful, but I truly feel that getting to work side by side with him and do this together as a team on our own is like a true gift. It's something I never expected to have in my career, and it's very fulfilling. So
well, you saw it work with your folks, but
yes.
now you're living it again. I mean, not every couple can do that. We were talking about that before, but I mean, it's a gift when you can work with your spouse and not run into the, interpersonal roadblocks that prevent a lot of people from making it work.
Well, and my mom worked in the business, but then she kind of was out.
Okay.
And we actually ended up bringing her back as a board member because
Cool.
she hadn't worked in the business for years. And she said, I shouldn't be on the board. And I said, we created a board when I went to work for him.
Yeah.
I said, yes, you should. Because I said, first of all, we need people on the board that aren't here every single day.
Right.
And second of all, she had a really good connection and relationship to the employees. So that was her perspective always, was the workforce. And I said, you're smart. This is also something I tell manufacturers or business owners. I'm like, even if the spouse isn't active, they have value, bring them into the conversation. But
they're likely to have conversations with the spouse a lot of people wouldn't have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
that type of familiarity works.
Yes.
And the spouse also has perspective that is often not heard, right?
Right. Exactly. I see that a lot. I'm
Yes.
like, no. This person has something important to say.
Right.
And she's right, or he's right. We need to think about this. But so we are the same, but a little bit different. I was actually just talking with my mom about this today, ironically. I was checking in with her about the conference, because she's like, how's it going? And they stay up with what was going on in our business. And she said, well, you're kind of going through what we did, but you're in a much better position, because she said, you're such a good resource for Jason, with just because of my work experience.
Right.
Of course.
And so that makes it easier. I mean, it's still hard. It's still stressful. We still have months where we're like, ooh, this doesn't look good. We better double down or dig in or go back to the bank.
Yeah.
But there is a sense of security knowing that I have that skill set that doesn't exist in a lot of small businesses. So I'm like, we kind of have a leg up here, I think. And him too, he's really good. But I'm a consultant, and I said, other people hire me for this same reason. So we have it here at our own shop.
Living the case study. Mm-hmm. How many people do you have working for you now?
We're just under 10 now.
Oh, wow. It was only 5 like last year,
and
right?
So I will tell you, which I was telling you right before we started this.
Yes.
This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my career, by far, is growing something from basically nothing. Because all my experience has really been working in mature companies,
Right.
mature businesses where there's a big problem, or they just need more revenue, or turn it around,
Right.
get it going. But I've had a lot to work with. It might have been broken, but it was something. And so just starting from scratch, I've never been challenged like this. It is very hard.
Do you think the payoff will be greater because you built something and established a culture than having to correct someone else's cultural mistakes?
Yes.
Our magazine is pretty much dedicated to that. Like, trying to undo what's been done.
Yes.
Rebuilding from that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we get the straight dope all the time, but it seems to be the common thing with a lot of conversations.
Yeah, I mean, we'll feel really good about it.
Yeah,
We're going to feel really good about it, and we're going to get there. But there's more challenges than just the growth, Like all the time, I'm like, man, if I had $10 million, I could spend that in a hot second, and I know exactly what I would
Right.
buy and hire and implement and purchase, and so that slows you down. So that's hard because I'm not used to being slowed down, and it limits how fast you can go sometimes. But that's okay. It's part of it.
Right.
It's part of it. And we're getting there. The snowball is rolling. We're still in that beginning stage, but we're getting closer.
You'd mentioned working for the family company, early on, or being a part of seeing the early days of the family company. And there was kind of an inflection point where a couple of customers came on.
Right.
What do you think that'll be for your company?
I think
or maybe it's happened already.
Yeah, I think we're there. I think we're getting there. We're
Similar,
getting to the
similar
point,
type situation where
where like the B2B business is becoming a higher percentage of the business
Gotcha.
than
Right.
farmer
The onesie, twosie, and
Mr. Smith, who has like three grain carts that need work done, or here we'll just give you this one project.
Right.
Where we're having repeat. The B2B is when you get what I consider more production type, contract type work, and this year we have onboarded a lot of that. It's not a lot of dollars, but it's a lot of customers.
Right.
And so now we'll just grow from there.
right. But you can't get there without first having been.
Yes,
in the,
exactly.
Farmer down the road needs a couple of trailers welded up. And,
Right.
Yeah. And you said something before that made me really curious. You talked about the aspect of I want to call it like knowing what you don't know, or when you're talking about the mentorship. Now that you've got this highly complementary skill set going with your husband, and you have this experience, what are some things that you've noticed as a business person that you've had to brush up on? What are some things in owning your own business that we had to work on that thing? Just by way of educating our listeners, what's one thing that you thought, oh wow, I wish I would have known that when we started the business, or I wish I would have been a little more astute with that.
Geez, that's tough. It's probably what to do. It's probably what to do and what type of work to go after and what type of industries to pursue.
Sure.
And
Sure.
that's been a real challenge where I feel like, why is this so hard for me to figure it out? And who do I go call, and how do I get it's like I have so many relationships at John Deere, for example,
Right.
or with these big companies. And a lot of them call me, to be honest, because, they say, what are you doing? Are you doing anything like what your parents do? I'm like, well, not yet, but I wish. I'm like, but we're getting there. It's like, I can't be a supplier to you right now.
Right.
But also that's a sign of the market, just as a little plug.
Yeah,
like
no.
Are these OEMs are desperate for suppliers. And so I've had several of them call me and say, can you do this for us yet? And I'm like, not yet, but we're getting there. And so that's been the hardest part for me is what's the road from here to here? Like, I know we can do it. And I know it's there, and I know the work's there. But what do I have to do? And what do I do first, second, third? Like right now, we need equipment and we need a bigger building. Which one of those do I do first? We only have so much money and time. And so we're going through that process right now, trying to figure it out.
Which in a way perhaps is a good problem to have, because you
Right.
have possibilities.
Right.
But any small business person would tell you is like,
Right.
those are the questions you have to start asking yourself when the word growth
Right.
hits.
Right. And also, I've always said that my whole mentality has always been, just write the check and I'll fill it up. Don't worry about it. Just do it. Why are we dragging our feet? Like, let's go. And now that I'm the owner and I have to write the check,
your checking account.
honestly, I'm kind of having this internal conversation like, I hope I can do this. Like, well, now I have to be able to do this. I sympathize so much more with my parents now, understanding and just like workforce issues and things that I was always like, so this person ran scrap, like it's not a big deal. It's like, well, when it's yours, it matters more. Or like give people more vacation. All these decisions that I was like, just do it. It's easy. Move on. Buy this thing. It's fine. Why are we so worried about this? Why are we running so many different financial models? And now my husband and I are having those same conversations, which is where mentorship comes in big time to say, mostly here's a mistake we made, so don't do it this way.
You talked in a recent column about transparency, but the need for that.
Yes.
And you were pretty adamant in the few hundred words you wrote for us about how beneficial that is. Talk a little bit more about it, if you would, please. Why transparency? Because transparency and is vulnerability,
right?
In a lot of cases, and
it's also a strength.
Yeah, talk about that, because I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage if you can get comfortable with it and then communicate that to your customer. Because I grew up in corporate America. So you report to shareholders, everything's transparent.
Yeah. By law.
Yeah. And so I was just very comfortable with that. Well, then when I went back into small business, I remember negotiating like our first big national contract with my parents' company with huge OEM. And they were, everybody was so offended by the contract, what they wanted, like they wanted access to like our margins and they wanted, VAVE, cost reduction so many years over years in terms and just real question. They came for a site visit and they want real insight into how you're running your business.
Right.
And that was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow. And I was like, what's the big deal? This is this is what you do. Yeah. And I said, who cares if they know what our profit is? They know we have to make money to be in business.
Right.
And so
trust you with this contract.
But that is very common in small business. Just I don't want to communicate how much revenue I have. Right. I don't want to communicate. And I get it. It's personal. The bottom line is it's personal. And I have not worked professionally that way. For me, it was very objective, black and white, but small business is personal and it can be emotional. It's like, our company was basically like the fifth child in our family, with the amount of time and resources that it
even
took.
had its own Christmas stocking.
Yeah, got more attention. But
that's a big stocking there.
Yeah, but so that's hard, and but it's like you don't really have anything to hide. Like there's profit. Okay, of course your customers want you to make money or else you're going out of business. And these terms, we're just going to negotiate back and forth on them. And, but also transparency when things go wrong, transparency. And
they're going to find out either way.
I just feel like, and with the workforce too, information makes people comfortable.
Right, absolutely.
And none of us like to feel like we're being kept in the dark on something. Nobody likes that. And so with our employees, with our customers, we're very transparent. We communicate openly because with the workforce, we get a lot more buy-in.
Yeah.
And with the customers, they just feel a lot more comfortable doing business with us.
And they trust you more.
Yeah, they trust. It's all about trust. And so as a consultant, I've learned a lot because I've gotten to work for some great companies. And one of my best clients, he's amazing. He owns multiple companies. He's the most transparent person I've ever worked for. He'll tell customers, employees. He owns huge companies, and like everybody's in the loop. And I've learned a lot working for him and seeing firsthand how powerful that is. His team loves him. They're totally committed to the cause. He's pulled businesses out of bankruptcy and gotten customers to stick it out with him when they probably shouldn't have, but because they trusted him,
Trust builds loyalty, right? I mean,
yes. Yeah. So to beat a dead horse, there's multiple reasons why I think it's important and critical.
Well, thank you for that, because that's something that I'm sure as a consultant you're able to help people grasp and use to their advantage.
Yeah, I'm hearing like anything involved with growth is stressful, and asking these. Really, I mean, I think that's why you see so many. We use the term lifestyle companies to describe those shops that are kind of situated at a certain revenue level, and they'll grow if the market's kind of there, and they won't. But that's small business. People are making their, maintaining a lifestyle for them and their workers. That's easy. Not easy, but that exists. From your perspective, running your own business now and consulting, one of the things we see is, at least I've seen in speaking with shops that have tried to become more formal, take on some of the aspects of bigger companies with defined job descriptions, career pathways. They kind of get it for the younger generation. If they want to buy in, the kids want to see where they're going, or entry-level workers.
Correct.
Do you see more companies doing that? And the other part of that is, and I want to ask you, is are they getting more sophisticated about sales? Because I think that's where I don't have as many conversations. Usually they're growing now because the market, as you described, is hot. So they're not investing as many people, resources, or maybe even monetary. So maybe if you can touch upon the HR maturation of the industry, and maybe the sales is there, and your perspective on that.
Well, I feel like since I've been back in manufacturing, which is almost 10 years now, I've definitely seen the dial move, but there's so much opportunity, so much to grow, and HR I don't know as much about, but I do think workforce is the number one challenge I always hear about. So I think there's a focus there. I do know there's a major focus there at a minimum, as far as what all's being done. I'm not as tied in, but sales. Once you've worked for a truly sales-driven industry, we have so much room to grow in manufacturing. And I still see even very large companies that are just responding to what's coming at them. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's not, it's tough. And still struggling with, even if they do have a sales effort, hiring the right lead and onboarding sales reps, and what's the comp plan. And sales is scary, because when I hire somebody to run a laser, I get something for every dollar I pay them the minute they start. Sales is not like that. The benefit is down the road, and so it's a leap of faith, and making the right hire, getting the right team. Is this plan going to work? You don't know until you may not catch the problem until 9-12 months into it. So then a lot of people shy away from pulling the trigger on that, and a lot of owners just do it themselves. So, but there's no question that a defined, structured, executable plan is what you have to do if you really want to have double-digit growth year over year.
And mitigate those ups and downs.
Yeah. In parallel, have somebody who's managing the operational onboarding of that, but you have to have a defined, executable sales plan if you want to grow double digits year over year reliably.
Plans are good.
I have one question. So we're recording this live at the annual FMA annual meeting in Vegas. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what you're getting out of this experience, and you've attended past shows before. Okay,
great question, because I love.
There you go, Gara.
I love the FMA. I love it.
I think the FMA loves you as well.
Oh, I think they do. There's a lot of love in here. But honest to God, and I've talked with my parents about this. We should have joined sooner, because really, when you come, I think a lot of times when people think about associations, they think, And we just talked about this in our board meeting yesterday, because I'm a small guy. I'm on the board and I'm a tiny little business owner, and everybody else owns these like really big, huge companies. And then there's me. And so thank you, FMA, for giving us a voice. But anyway, you think, well, once we get to a certain point, then we'll join associations and we'll do this. It's like, no way. The businesses like mine need this group more than anything, more than anybody does, because we're trying to figure it out. And you can come to an event like this, and you can network, and you can go to seminars, and you can take tours, and you can just get so much information that's going to help you go back and make better business decisions. And the FMA offers stuff all year round. We send people to the training, and we need to do more of it, actually. I made a note of that while I've been here. It's like even me being a writer and a board member, like we don't fully utilize our membership, and we have got to start doing that, because there's just so many valuable resources the FMA offers. The membership is like a no-brainer, but then it's the actual utilization of what the group has to offer.
I mean, what I hear you saying is you're hyper involved and you're still not utilizing all that's there.
Correct. I'm like the cobbler who has kids have no shoes.
Yeah.
And, but small businesses, even if you have 2 people working there, getting involved with an organization like this can be a game changer. It's really important.
Yeah, I can literally probably 2 regular attendees who started out with like that 10-person shop, and probably now about 25 to 40.
That's great.
Yeah. So I mean, the bulk of this industry, if you're talking about per capita, probably small, like very small.
Yes.
And you know, there's opportunities for these people in this economy, frankly, for the foreseeable future. I don't see it.
Well, yesterday we saw a report that said there's over 20,000 job shops in the U.S., fabricators, okay? I mean, 80% of them are little.
Right.
It's like the 80-20 rule. So think about how many businesses that is. And there's a lot of opportunity right now, especially with all of the discussion about reshoring. And I'm witnessing it firsthand, but I'm also seeing it confirmed on a larger level, because I have clients all over the U.S. I have clients outside of the U.S. And it's here and it's happening, and we have to figure out how to get it.
How to respond.
Yes, how to respond. And that's probably where my stress or sense of urgency is around right now, is how do we get a share of that and get ready for it, and then go get it, and then onboard it, and then grow it. And everybody who's listening to this or is at the FMA annual meeting or in manufacturing should be thinking about that a lot right now, because there's more work than we can even possibly, supply.
Oh, without a doubt.
So everybody has opportunity.
I want to thank you for your time today. You're a
great.
font of wisdom. I encourage everybody to read her column, not only in TPJ, but also on thefabricator.com. You do regular presentations sometimes at our conferences. And I think we'll be wise to have you back to kind of talk about some of those topics. Like,
sure thing.
I mean, really, I think the first time I came across you and heard one of your presentations was about steps taken to sell your family business.
Yes.
And really, it touched all the way back from what you were describing about just starting out there. So I mean, these are, once again, plans, and executing those plans are important. But go to where you get your podcasts, rate, review, subscribe. I hear we have an email if people want to drop us a line.
Yeah.
And what would that be?
Podcast@thefabricator.com.
I'm glad you're here. I would never remember that.
It's kind of like rewording the
I'm
name.
not good at that. You should have seen the earlier takes of this podcast. Thanks a lot for your time.
Sure.
Thanks for
My
you,
pleasure.
Lincoln, for joining us.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and be sure and tune into our next episode. Bye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited with the help of Brandon Geyer. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Dana Weicker, Mary Diamond, Mike Owens, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.